Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today's video we're going to be installing pfSense, and we're actually going to replicate one of the products that they have on their website for an appliance. I've seen plenty of videos on the internet that show you how to install pfSense, how to install it, put the WAN on there, the LAN, and then that's about it. They kind of end it there. They'll show you like, oh, this is how you do a firewall, this is how you do this. You know, they may add another NIC to it. But they really don't go into detail on how to, first off, do a nice VM workstation installation of it so that everything kind of works off the router and how the router is supposed to work. They also don't really go into much detail pretty much outside of just the WAN and LAN setup. There's a few that do, and I give them credit, but they usually say, oh, you need to have an appliance to follow along with them. So I decided that I'm actually going to go ahead and skip all that for people, and I'm actually going to build you a pfSense in VMware Workstation with multiple NICs, and we're going to pretend that it's actually a real appliance. Now, if you look over here, I have obviously a bunch of operating systems, but if you can see here on my pfSense, I already actually have it, and you can see I have 4 network adapters attached to it, and that we all work in harmony with each other. I also have Windows Server 2019, Red Hat Linux, Debian, my dual boot, which is Windows 10 and Linux, another Linux Raspbian, and every one of these actually does run off my pfSense router. If I run them without the router, they don't actually function because they actually are running, the internet does connect directly to them. So if I run my Raspbian, it's going to look for my network adapter here under my DMZ because that's what it's under. If it doesn't see this, it doesn't know what to do and it doesn't connect. Now there are ways around it with VMware Workstation, obviously, but the whole point of it was to mirror and mimic exactly what would happen if you decided to do things on a pfSense router. All right, so first thing is first. All right, we're going to go over here, and I'm going to show you which product that we're actually doing. So you have a couple websites to look at. You have the pfSense basic website. If you don't know anything about pfSense, I do recommend you going here and reading up a little bit on their website, some training products they do, their cloud software capabilities now through pfSense, so you can actually host a virtual in there. The installation guide that we're going to go through today, all right, and how to set everything up is all going to be done through here. So this pretty much tells you if you actually purchased one of their products, how to set everything up, or if you just downloaded their their software and you wanted to be able to do this stuff. You can do it without having an appliance. It's just easier. And then you have the systems here. Now Netgate is the authorized dealer for pfSense. They are the only authorized dealer for pfSense. So if you ever bought a product that had pfSense on there and Netgate's name wasn't on it, it's not a legitimate authorized installation. Now, I'm not saying that people can't sell pfSense on their products. It is allowed because it's open source software. But if you want the best support and the best guarantee that everything's going to work properly, purchase it through Netgate. All right, so they have 7 different products here. And the one we're going to do is the most common that probably most people are going to use for standard home and small business. When you get to like the XG 7100 and above, pretty much the XG series, these are for enterprise. 10 gigabit network connections and a lot more involved into it, more memory, more power. Basically, you can house up to like 500 plus users, all the way up to like say I think 5,000. This one can do. It's ridiculous. But for most home users, you're going to either pick this one or this one. This one only gives you 2 network ports, as this one gives you 5. So in our case, because we can go extreme, we might as well go with the bigger one. So we're going to be able to build a WAN, 4 LANs, an op connection, and everything like that. So we're going to have a bunch. I'm actually going to make 4 connections, not 6, because I'm kind of running out of things to do with all these extra network ports and everything. But realistically, like if you had this at home, like WAN, like these 2 would be your WAN. So you have WAN 1, WAN 2, or at the business. So you have failover and load balancing, and then you have your networks here. So you have your basic LAN, You'll have this one which will call like your camera network port, and then you'll have this one over here which could be like your DMZ, and then this one could be like your wireless network, completely separate from everything else too, kind of like the DMZ. Or you can make this anything else you want, like your servers, and actually make this nothing but servers, and then this one connects over to it. I've done a company where I made this. We had a virtual farm, and we hosted a lot of stuff for them. So actually we had this one, which was the virtual farm NIC, and then this one was our camera NIC, our DMZ for anybody who came to the building, and then our regular LAN port for our actual office and workers. So there's a bunch of different things you can do with this, depending on what you want to work with. All right, so first thing is first, we're going to go to pfSense.org/download, and we got to download the software. Now it's very simple. I'll go ahead and reload this page. Okay, so all you got to do is you go down here to select image to download. Now we obviously are using 244. If this is later on, it might be different, but again, the concept and principles are still the same, whether we do in this video or we use an older version, and even a earlier version. If you have, like, say 2.4, 2.0, and everything like that, this will actually still work for you, because what the virtual is doing is just mirroring and mimicking what this is doing. All right, so we're going to click on AMD 64. And then the installer is going to be a CD image. If you're actually going to do this with a live environment, like you're going to actually put this on an old computer and you want to test it that way because you got this old server and you want to do all this cool stuff with it, then you're going to want the memory stick installer. It just makes it easier. I mean, but you can still download the CD if you want. Pick which one's closest to you, and then you're going to click on download. Now, I've already went ahead and did this to save time in the video. So we took care of all that. So what's going on here with this is that, like I said, we're going to mirror this. So I'm going to put 4 instead of 6. I mean, I can make the extra NICs. I just don't really, worry too much about that. Storage, you can have a choice between an 8 gig or a 32. It's up to you. If you're going to buy it, I usually just go big and just get the 32. But again, it's a M.2 SATA SSD. So in all reality, you can buy any M.2 SATA SSD for it to plug into it. So they're charging you $43. If you found one that you think is reliable for less than that, you're more than welcome to use it. Just remember, there could always be some kind of compatibility issue with it or reliability. They do test these things out, so it's a reliable scenario. The other thing we got to do is we just got to take a quick look down here at the specs. Now, I do recommend going to this website. This will be down in the description below to see what we're actually building, a little more information about it. But I just need a couple of specs real quickly from it. All right, so on the spec sheet here, it is a 1.6 dual core CPU. All right, now it tells you right here what kind of networking it has. Which we don't have to worry about because we can't really configure anything more than that. The onboard storage and the memory. Now it also tells you here too, you can add Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, an M.2 socket. Now that is actually different. These M.2 sockets here, the EEB keys and everything else, they're actually different. So they actually have multiples inside that board. So you can install your SSD in there, as well as putting a Wi-Fi adapter as well in there. Me personally, I don't really put a Wi-Fi in there unless I'm putting it in my home. I'll put like a Wi-Fi chip in there if it's at my house. But a lot of times I'll use like Ubiquiti's, network connectors, or not network connectors, access points, the little domes, or, TP-Link has the same ones too around my house. I'm not going to bother, trying to use a Wi-Fi chip for my pfSense. I kind of want my pfSense to be just a enterprising gateway / router, or as they like to call it now, a security appliance. So now that we got this information here, we're going to be able to actually now build the virtual. All right, so over here, I do have a little Word document that I'm actually going to post down below in the description. So it's going to sit here and explain to us how to set everything up. Forgot to add that. All right, so what it's going to do here is we got to set up VMware to begin with. Now we got to set up the virtual NICs. All right, so we're going to have one that's already pre-configured, which is the bridge network, and then we got to add 3 more exactly as I put here. All right, so to go ahead and do that, we got to go to Edit, and then go to Virtual Network Editor. Now, down here in the bottom where my mouse is, you would normally see a Apply Changes button. The reason why you don't see it on mine is because I run my VMware workstation as administrator, so I don't have to worry about always hitting these buttons here when I'm changing network NICs and everything like that. But if you don't run your workstation as administrator, you're not going to see this down here below. But there is a button down here for you to actually start changing anything, and you will be prompted for it. So here we go. So to start off with, you will probably see VMnet 0, 1, and 8. These 3 down here you more likely do not have yet. Okay, so this is where you have to add them. Now, VMnet 0 is the first one we're going to edit. It's going to say VMnet 0, bridged, and internal connections will probably be auto bridging. I like to set mine directly to what it's bridged to. So I run a hardwired link on this tutorial and at my house. So for this case being here, I'm going to bridge it to my hardwire link. That's exactly what I want it to look for. If you do auto bridging, what it does, it just shuffles through them all until it finds an actual connection. So if I actually unplug my, Ethernet adapter, it will say, wow, we lost it, and then it'll just jump over to my wireless to see if that connected, and then it'll, try to pick up from there. All right. So first thing is that we're going to leave VMnet 1 and 8 alone. Okay, we can go ahead and change them, but I don't want to bother. So next thing is we're going to start adding our next 3. So this one right here is on our document here, VMnet 11. So when you go to add network, it's going to ask you to select a network. You're going to scroll down to VMnet 11. Now as you can see, mine goes from 10 to 14 because it's already enabled. What I ended up doing here too is I rename them to LAN, LAN2, and DMZ to match everything on here. Reason being, it makes it a little bit easier to remember which one's which when we're actually setting everything up at the virtual. So I remember that, okay, VMnet 11, because it'll only come up as VMnet 11, 12, and 13. You're like, wow, I don't remember which one I made which. So it makes it a little bit easier if you just label them exactly as they are supposed to be in your network. Okay, so down below here, we're going to have to make sure that we turn DHCP services off. And then we're going to have to change the subnet IP to 10.0.0.0. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, leave the screen up for a few seconds. So make sure that your LAN is the exact same setup as my LAN. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is going to go to LAN 2. Now the thing is with these 3, they're all going to be the same. So they're all going to be host only, connect to a host virtual adapter, and then use local DHCP services. Okay, so they're all going to be ahead and do this. Now, you can go ahead and disconnect it from a host connected adapter, and that's fine because what they'll also do is that'll also be that. The reason why I leave this connected to a virtual host network adapter is because I want to guarantee that the subnet IPs and everything like that are functioning. Also, I'm able to actually use it to connect other things together and ping them together. There's a few reasons why I keep that on. But in some instances, you may want to turn that off if you're having problems with your network. All right, so for LAN 2, we're going to go ahead. I'm going to leave this up for a few seconds. Going to make sure you copy it as you see here on the screen. So you're going to have to go ahead and click Add Network, rename your network, click Host Only, connect to a virtual adapter, and then change the subnet IP. Okay, and now for the last one. Again, add network, This one's number 13. Hit rename network to DMZ. VMnet information is host only. Connect to a virtual adapter. And then we're going to do with the subnet IP at 172.16.0.0. And we're actually going to change the subnet mask to a /16, which is 255.255.0.0. We're doing this for DMZ because I want to give you a much broader IP range to work with. If you also haven't noticed too, the three most common private IPs you'll ever see is a 10.0 number, a 192.168.3.0, and a 172.16 that number. These are considered private IPs. And I made a mistake on that. So when you're ever in an actual environment, you're going to find people are going to have a IP that usually starts with 10.10.10.1, something like that nature. Another one that starts with 192 dot whatever and 172 dot whatever. The reason why you see them is because they're, like I said, they're considered private IPs that are distributed out so that nobody can use them, so they're internals only. So in this video, I'm actually giving you the opportunity to actually work and see how all three of them function. And they're all actually different. Technically, they're different subnets and classes. So we're going to get a little bit of extra networking tutorial as well with this. So as long as everything that's on this screen is the exact same way you see on yours, hit OK. If not, go back and just try to edit which ones are which. So you have to make sure your VMnet 0 is bridged and bridged to your active connection. Your LAN is set up with host only. It is also a 10.0.0.0. Your LAN 2, which is host only, it's a 192.168.3.0. And your DMZ, which is a host only, and a 172.16.0.0. And each one of these has DHCP disabled, as you can see the negative hash mark in here. Okay, hit OK. Going to go ahead and start adding and fixing the setup. Now it's time to go ahead and create the pfSense network. So we're going to go with typical. We're going to choose an operating system later. We're going to select other, and it's going to be FreeBSD 11 64-bit. We're going to name it pfSense 2.4.4, but you can call it pfSense if you want. I already have a pfSense, so I don't want any kind of conflicts. Next. Now you can make it an 8 if you want, but because again the highest that the SG 3100 here gives us is 32, so I'm going to give it 32. I'm going to store as a single file because it's not big enough to worry. I mean, in all reality, you're probably looking at about, I don't know, less than a gig really of all stuff on the initial install. When you start installing other packages and everything, that's where the extra memory needs to come in from, and it's hard drive space and everything else. So from here, we're going to click on Finish. Okay, so now we got to do some editing. So we're going to click Edit Virtual Machine. Go to Memory, and again, it takes 2 gigs of memory. So I'm going to allocate this thing for 2 gigs of max of memory. The processor is going to be a single processor with 2 cores. Hard drive is going to be left alone. Now we got to mount our ISO. So CD DVD, hit Browse. I'm going to go to my ISO folder and mount the pfSense 2.4.4 release P3 AMD 64 ISO that we downloaded at the beginning of the video. Okay, now we're going to come back to network adapters. I just want to finish the rest of this. USB controllers, this is up to you. I usually remove it, and the reason why I remove the USB controller is because honestly there is no need for it in our situation. We're not going to plug in any USB devices into it or change anything. Everything that we can deal with is actually done via remote. So I can go ahead and attach a NAS box to this setup here and download everything directly to it. So I really don't need it. Same thing with the sound card. Don't really need it. Display we leave as auto, and then we leave everything alone in here except for possibly snapshots. So what I'll do is I'm going to set mine snapshots to ask me. So every time I power it off, it's going to ask me, do I want to take a snapshot? Do I want to revert the snapshot with it? And the reason why I do this is because I do a lot of demos and testing with this program, and I really sometimes forget, that I didn't take a snapshot and I did a lot of work to it. I'm like, oh man, this is broken now. I don't want to have to reinstall. So you can either leave it just power off or ask me. I usually set for ask me. Now to the fun part, the network adapters. Now we're going to need 4 of them. So go down to the bottom and hit add, click on network adapters and finish. And we're going to keep doing that until we see 4 network adapters. As you can see, they're all set as NAT, and that's not what we want. All right, because as we look over here in our little lab environment setup, type of guest, FreeBSD 11, processor 1 processor 2 cores, 2 gigs of RAM, anywhere from 8 to 32 gigs of hard drive, and network is 4. We need a bridge, LAN, LAN 2, and DMZ. Very simple to do. Network adapter 1, click bridge. Okay. Network adapter. Well, that's a little weird, but okay. Go ahead and remove that. That is very odd how that's set up, but okay. Let me see if I get this back in order. Okay, so now it's back in order. I don't know why or how it did that, but okay. All right, network adapter 2. Now you don't need them in number order, but to me, I have a little OCD problem with that. Also, I want to make sure that everything works the way I have it written down and expecting it to. So network adapter 2, click custom. Click on LAN, host only. Adapter 3, same thing, LAN 2. And the 4th one will be our DMZ. Now, they don't have to be in order this way, but for you to follow along and understand what I'm doing, I recommend you doing it this way. Otherwise, most of the numbers here that we're working on and later on when we start doing the ports and the configuring of the interfaces are going to be different for you than it is for me. But in this case, we're ready to go. So I can go ahead, click OK, because now that we have everything set up, I recommend you just pausing the video and just making sure that everything on the screen you see here is how it is on your screen. If it's not, make any corrections you need right now. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and power it on. Go ahead and make this full screen. Now the nice thing about this is that it is a very quick install. You will get this done within 5 minutes. Even on an actual appliance you're installing is going to take a few minutes. It does not take long at all to do any of these installs for this. It actually takes most of your time is configuring the interfaces and moving from there. Okay, so we're going to hit accept on the welcome screen. We're going to click install pfSense. We'll go over this stuff in another video. But the quick information, rescue shell, self-explanatory. Your pfSense isn't working properly. This will go ahead and create a shell that you can log into and correct anything you can. And the recover the config XML. When you back up your config file and you make a really bad error in here and you can't recover it through the shell, you can recover it through the config file. I always recommend backing up your config file because it's a very good thing to do. In case you ever make a whoopsie in your installation process or configuring process, which I've done in the past a few times. So go ahead and hit install. First thing is key mapping. If you have any other besides American, please select everything below. As you can see, they have a laundry list. Alright, I'm just going to go back up and just click default because it's just going to read whatever my default is. We're going to click on auto UFS because it is an empty hard drive that we're putting on here, so we don't have to worry about changing or adding things or partitioning anything off. And we're just going to watch it quickly install. And that's it. Now, if we want to do any manual configurations or adding everything, we can, but because we're new to this, we're going to hit no because we don't need to do any modifications. And we want to reboot so we can start using our pfSense. And that's it. That's the actual installation process. So now what it's going to do, it's going to reboot, and it's going to reboot us right into our interfacing. And there we go. So we're now at the login screen. We're able to now go ahead and look at everything. Now, the first thing we always do is change these. And the reason why we change this is because obviously these two can't match. That's not going to be a good scenario for anybody. Also because this is actually set for a 10 dot whatever number, so we can't keep that. First things first, we're going to press 2. That's going to set the IP. And we're going to press 2 again because it's our LAN. Enter the new LAN. 10.0.0. I'm going to make it 254, but you can make it .1. Okay. Our new subnet bit count is 24. That is, as you can see above, 255.255.255.0. With the other ones in later on in the video will be 255.255.0.0, which is 16-bit. But you cannot type in the full amount. You have to just type in the bit count between 1 and 31, which is actually 1 to 30. So in our case, it's going to be 24. This is a LAN, so we do not need to set up a gateway address because it's going to automatically default to our WAN. Okay, I don't use IPv6 for this tutorial, so we're going to go ahead and hit enter for none. I do want to enable DHCP. And then I got to type in the range address. So I'm going to do 10.0.0.6 to 10.0.0.240, we'll say. It could be anywhere between .1 to 253. I usually always make it like 6 to whatever or 100 to whatever, but for this video, I'm just going to make it very simple because we're only going to connect a couple items here. And then do I want to revert back to HTTP for the web configure? I do not. I want to keep it as HTTPS, so I'm going to hit the letter N for no, and then hit enter. Okay, and that's the simplest thing now. So what we went ahead and did here is we installed pfSense. We configured all the virtuals for everything we needed to. And now we're able to go ahead and log into our pfSense virtual to finish the configuration. So I'm going to go ahead, just minimize this. I'm going to open up a web browser. Now, even though, let me just go back here, even though that I'm running a 192.168.1.163 on here, because we have the enabled virtual NIC, everything like that on our pfSense, I'm now able to log into this. Otherwise, I would have to boot up another OS to go do all this configuration. So I'm now able to do 1.0.0.254, and you can see it finds it. If I go to command and I type in ping, it sees it. And that's because we have the virtual NIC enabled. If we turn the virtual NIC off, I would need to do this all in the virtual environment. So the username and password is admin, password's pfSense. And now we're just going to go through the basic install to get us to the directory here. First page is just a welcome. This is letting you know that Netgate has global support with this. So hostname. We can change this to whatever we want. I usually leave this as pfSense. Now, the domain, again, is up to you, how you want to run your domain. So if you actually own a domain, I'm going to type in a domain. So that's my domain. I own this. So when I type in the actual name of to get to my router, it will be pfSense.vmwareadvisor.com. All right. Now for here, we're going to go ahead and change up a few things. So 8.8.8. And the reason why we're setting these up now for Google, you can pick Open Cloud or OpenFair Cloud, whatever you want. I'm just doing this because I want to guarantee I can see the internet with it while we're setting up our DHCP servers later and network configurations. In an actual enterprise environment, you probably will not do this. You may put like cloud on there or something like that, so you're able to ping it. But for the most part, your primary DNS would usually be this pfSense router. So it'll be a 127.0. We have 127.0.0.1. The actual IP address of the pfSense router. So ours will be 192.168.1.113. In my case, or 163, sorry. But just for this, I want to make sure that the pfSense router is seeing the internet with no problem. It's able to ping the internet and everything. So having these external DNSs does help out. Okay, select your time zone. Now you can see here, we have a lot to choose from. So right now, I am located actually out in Europe. So I'm going to pick out this because this is my time zone for where I'm at. Now you have your WAN interface. Now it's set for DHCP. If you're doing this at home, you're going to leave this alone. You're going to set for DHCP. Okay, if you're not at home and you're running a business and you have a static IP, which we're going to do, you're going to click static. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to type in the IP address that was given to us by our ISP. So my ISP told me it's 192.168.1.240. Yours will be different, but you have to get it from your ISP. All right, they're going to give you all this information. Same thing with your subnet masking and everything else. Your ISP will give you all this. Okay, then you have your upstream gate, 192.168.1.1. This is the gateway they're going to give you. All right, so pretty much as of right now, I have a static ready to go. DHCP client configuration, we can leave that, and we're not using any PPPoE configurations, so we can skip all that. Same thing with PPTP, not using it. And then you got your block, your bogons, and your RFC 1918s. We're going to leave these on. Okay, now we've already configured our LAN IP address and subnet, so we're going to click next on this to skip past it. Now, by default, you got to change your password. You can't leave it as pfSense. You got to pick something different. They don't have restrictions or requirements, to how strong your password can be, but making it password is not a very good idea. So pick a very strong password to set up, and then go ahead and click next. Okay, then we're going to hit reload. And if everything worked out, you will go ahead and be greeted with the congratulations, you're configured scenario. Hit finish at the bottom. Okay, we're going to accept the non-commercial agreement license that you're going to go with. And there we go. So we are right now currently set up with pfSense, and we are good to go. You have your system information over here explaining everything. As you can see here, here's our DNS servers. So it automatically configured the straight up, pfSense. Then it looks at your router, and then it looks at your two externals. If you have a DNS server built in, which we're going to show later on in another video, these numbers will actually change out to something different. Now we go over to Diagnostics, and we're going to click on Ping. Type in Google. I'm going to try WAN first. As you can see here, everything came back okay. Then we do the same thing with LAN. And again, everything came back okay. So this right here lets me know that pfSense is seeing the internet on both interfaces. I'm going to go ahead and close out of that screen. So here you have your WAN and your LAN, and it does see that they're both configured and they are connecting to the internet. Then we see over here, as I will go ahead and enter on the screen, it went ahead and updated. So from previously it said 163, now it says 240. And then the same thing here with the LAN, it will see 254 as we have it configured. So one more thing left to do, all right, before we end this up and go change out. We're going to click on Interfaces and click Assign, because now we got to assign our other two NICs that we haven't done yet. Now we can do them in the command over here, but considering most of the stuff we're going to be doing is actually through this interface, might as well do it through here. So first things first, we're going to click Add, and then Add again. So now they're added. Now we have OPT1 and OPT2. Now, if we remember correctly, this one will be LAN 2, and this one is going to be DMZ. So to change that, we're going to click on OPT1. First thing is enable the interface. Description, LAN 2. We're now going to hit DHCP, static, because we have to give this gateway a static gateway IP. And then we're going to do the same thing here. So we remember this is 192.168.3.1. And this was a 24. And that is it. Now, if you want, we can make it like everything else. So I'll just make it a 254 at the end of the spectrum. I'm going to go ahead and hit save. Now, you always got to hit apply changes. If you don't hit apply changes, it's not going to save anything, and you're just going to keep going over and over again. So again, enable interface, change it to LAN 2, IPv4 configuration is static, IPv6 is none. The IP address we're going to be using is 192.168.3.1. 3254, and the bit counter for the subnet mask is 24. Okay, so now we're going to go back up to interfaces, and then at the bottom there you see it says OPT2. So we're going to click on that, and now we're going to do the same thing. Enable interface, type in DMZ, configure this one for a static, and we're going to type in 172.16.0.1, and we're going to make this a subnet count of 16. Now, the reason why I picked 1 instead of this is 1, it's DMZ, so I'm not too worried about it. 2 is because the IP range is going from 172.16.0.1 all the way to 172.16.255.254. It's a lot of IP addresses. All right, so you can technically make your gateway any one of those numbers, anywhere in between. You can make it 100 dot whatever. I mean, this is a large style IP range. You'll see this more or less in corporations and Fortune 500s and very large businesses that require hundreds, if not a few thousand IP addresses. ISPs would love to, usually like to use this, but they cut them smaller, to smaller subnets. So, but for this video, to make it simple, we're just going to keep it down below. Again, we're going to hit save, apply changes, and there we go. So we're going to go back to pfSense. We're going to click on the logo right here. So as you can see here, we have everything all ready to go. So we have our WAN, our LAN 1, LAN 2, and our DMZ. Now we go back over here to pfSense and we just hit enter again. As you can see, it went ahead and added our LAN 2 and our DMZ, explaining what they are. All right, but if I go over here, I go ahead to ping it out, and there we go. We are seeing network connectivity. So we have network on all three of them, so we know that it's actually running through the gateway properly. But we go under here real quickly under firewall rules, there are none. So as you can see here, everything is blocked. So we went ahead, we created our virtual lab in VMware Workstation. We created all our NICs that we needed to. We installed pfSense. We configured all our interfaces on pfSense. So what's left to do is we're going to go ahead and, in our next video actually, we're going to go ahead and start testing out these network adapters in pfSense. So what's going to end up happening is we're going to boot up a few other virtuals, and we're going to connect them to these interfaces, and then we're going to see if they can communicate to each other, if they can talk to, if they can talk back to another client, back and forth. We're going to see how not having DHCP turned on is going to go ahead and affect them all. So our next video is mainly connecting and DHCP servers, and then we're going to do after that will be firewall. And our third video, when we do the firewall video, that will explain how to block connections from DMZ to LAN and LAN 2, so we don't have to worry about back chatter or somebody on your network connecting to each other and then stealing all your company data. So I hope this video was very informative and helped people out. If you have any questions, leave some comments below. I do know this video was a little bit longer than it needs to be. Again, we had to go over a lot of information. So hopefully, again, this all worked out. Like always, I will leave a copy of this in the description below, so you can download this actual VM, but you will have to set up the interfaces on your network. If you don't do that, obviously the VM will not work properly because the interfaces aren't there. So no matter what, you still got to do your own interface setup, but you can actually download the copy of the pfSense we just installed right now. So if you liked the video, like, subscribe, stop back later when I upload the other 2 videos, and I hope everybody has a great day. So I'll see you guys next time.